Welcome once again to Lee G. We're at his palatial residence in the village of the Damned, and yeah, he's making signs. What are you making signs for?
I'm being one of those people who do it for deaf people. You're saying palatial, I'm going palatial home. Mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a thought, because it always bothers me. It's the woke prime ministers and woke countries that have these signers on. And sometimes they're actually bigger than the person speaking, aren't they? It's a bit bizarre. Why don't they rely on text coming across the bottom of the picture?
Because of the BBC, 100% because of the BBC, who were the vanguard of that, and everything that came up was spelt wrong. It was a complete embarrassment. Sentences didn't make sense. Names were spelt wrong. Everything was spelt wrong. So they banned it and got people back on online.
Oh well, it's been superseded by AI because speech to text, as it's called, is actually very good, but on another level, it's very bad because I've never laughed so much at the translation sometimes,
No,
especially
exactly.
especially the rude ones. I mean, that's why they didn't have it there. It would go out and the public would really know what the beep was like.
I know. Yeah, I know. Some horrendous ones, which you can't share really, as
No,
it
but
being a family show.
yeah, we all know what they listen. Talking about horrendous things, we've been talking actually off camera about Andrew Tate. Now we've done quite a lot of programs, as the customers will realise, on abuse, and Andrew comes pretty high up on that because he's OTT. Now we don't know whether Romania have got him on a pretext or whether there's truth in it. That will come out in the 23rd century, no doubt, like most things do. But it's Nigel has committed the unforgivable sin and actually used him as an illustration, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I don't have any great time for the bullfrog, beer drinking, bullfrog, chain smoking Farage. I don't like his politics. I don't like his attitude. I don't like the what he stands for. I don't like his way of twisting things and trying to make things seem to be palatable when they're not. But compared to Andrew Tate, he's a Vestal virgin. Andrew Tate is one of the most twisted, obnoxious, ridiculous, pointless human beings who've ever walked this earth. And yet, Romania have him on many charges. We don't know what the charges are exactly. There's all sorts going on. Most of them are potentially really bad criminal acts. But how that man, I don't even like calling him a man because that tars me and you with the same brush as him. But that human being, which I hate calling him, even less than a man, is so despicable that he should not be allowed any airtime. He's been allowed airtime by people like Farage because they claim it's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech has never involved hatred, women bashing, gay bashing, racism. It is against all those things. Andrew Tate is not. That does not mean that he has freedom of speech. Whatever happens to Andrew Tate, but what Andrew Tate does is actually reflect a very big potential section of British and international society. And that is what is frightening about him. And also what is terrifying about somebody like Farage backing him or supporting him.
Well, the problem is really the Guardian newspaper, Lee, because I keep telling you to get the Beano. It's got more truth in it than the Guardian newspaper. Of course, what the Guardian has done here is said Farage supports Tate. No,
Yeah.
he doesn't. That is rubbish. I mean, he made a metaphor of various things by saying, well, he's not surprised that you've got clowns like Tate saying what they do, because it's sort of redressing the balance of the other side. And the other side, of course, go mad on anti-men. Men are horrible, especially white men. So he's
Especially
used,
men like me.
especially him, yeah, especially. He's sort of using it, not supporting Tate, but the Guardian has him supporting Tate. Listen, on another matter, which is equally as
Can I
important.
just put my hand up?
Yes, you can put your hand up. You can't go to the loo, though.
if if Farage says, in whatever terms he couches it, that Tate has a position within our society where he represents a certain thing and says it in what can be looked at and seen by millions and millions of people as a positive way of presenting, then what word would you personally use in The Guardian other than support? He's not
Well,
against it.
no,
He's not
it wasn't
condemning it.
support. Actually, is it again mentioning the metaphor thing? We're going to talk about Sir Keir, and this is perhaps an even bigger danger because he said famously last night, and it's not all come out yet, but he said, well, Corbyn would have made a better prime minister than your wonderful friend Boris. Now, he was using that in a contextual sense, but if we're going to have a go at Tate, quite rightly so, we're certainly going to have a go at dear old Sir Keir. What's he up to? Does he honestly think if Corbyn would have got in as Prime Minister instead of Boris, he'd have rushed over to the Ukraine and supported the Ukraine? No, he'd have supported the Russians. Can you imagine where we would be now? And beyond that, I mean, all the other things that are coming out about Israel and Hamas, it would have been absolutely catastrophic for Britain.
Corbyn, Corbyn has really, in a way, you can put it right. This is going to be controversial. Don't complain to me, complain to him. Right. Corbyn, in his own way, is the Farage of the left wing trendies. He is obnoxious. He's silly. He pretends to be something he isn't, and he has views which are very, very dangerous to our society. Yes, if he had been in power instead of Boris, what would he have done? How would he have cured? What would he have done to get us through COVID? What would he have done to get us through Brexit? What would he have done when wars began around him? The man's a peacenik who supports or is accused on a regular basis. I'm not saying this. He's not saying this. Not me. But he's a man who's accused on a regular basis and has been for decades of consorting with terrorist organization. Now, just then, take there, you've got Corbyn, right? Then look at what you've got with Rishi. They are all very weak men. Rishi is, Keir is, and Corbyn's a weak man. Corbyn's a flanneller. You know, like I say, his house, the man of the people, his mansion house where he was brought up and where he worked on the Newport and Shropshire Advertiser many years ago, is just down the road from me. I live in a posh place. I live in a very posh place. So did that nice left-wing trendy Mr. Corbyn with his millions of pounds in the bank. No, Corbyn, what would Corbyn have done? There was no policy. There was no Keir Starmer throughout Boris's reign held on to Boris's whatever they call bootstraps and said, yes, we will support you. We will do everything. What would Corbyn have done? Run over a couple of photographers for a laugh? Would that have been the big, or not being able to open a door? A
Well,
man get
there
idiot.
you go. You've touched on something there. I believe perhaps we should have still been in lockdown because that's the way Corbyn would have wanted us. That's the last thing he wanted, to free us up. We escaped something there very close, and significantly, the young folk voted, and that's how he nearly got in. Now, sinister times are coming because Sir Keir is almost surely going to get in. But what's going to come? He's going to be in there for centuries. The young people are going to be voting from age 16. Clever, but obvious. That's why he's going to do it. Lots of things about Sir Keir coming out. The first thing happened last year, over the year. Knowing that Sir Keir would be in, 9,500 millionaires left Britain in a year.
Yeah.
Now, that's the biggest export of any country in the world,
Yeah.
9,500, bar one, China. You can understand why. But in
Mm.
the normal world, 9,500 fleeing the country. Think of what that means, the cost to us all, if we've got no entrepreneurs, millionaires giving jobs to people. Beware, people. Now, we may come over Tory, or I may come over Tory. Lee may come over as a pinko, but we're quite middle of the road, and we have extremes to prove a point.
Yes.
But I think we could get an extreme prime minister that could be out, even though Parliament lasts up to 5 years, as we all know. I reckon he could be out in 2 years. I think a coup would happen within his own party.
I think you're right. But who would replace him? Starmer. What is Starmer? What is he? He's a
Well,
bit of
that's the worry, Lee. Nobody knows.
no, exactly. He's a flabby, middle-aged, very well-off person who doesn't have a great dress sense, uh, doesn't really express himself magnificently. When he gets angry, he looks like he's just being a petulant child. He has nothing that you could really class as charisma, and he isn't supported by any great policies from the Labour Party. They don't really. It's what always happens. You and I could sit here now and set the world straight just by saying, well, if we did this, that's fine. That would help that. Well, if we did that, we'll do that. But neither of us would actually know, as we just decided to do it, exactly how we do it. And neither does Starmer, neither does the Labour Party. There are good people in the Labour Party. Of course, there are good people. And there are good people who will change the world for the better. But is Starmer really the man to do it? A weak, a rather fey, sort of bit smiley, bit cuddly kiddie. What is he? What does he do? Wait, then look at Richie. Look at Richie. What does he do? What does he do? Wears suits that are too small for him. Is that because it makes him look bigger? Oh, look, I'm too big for this suit. No, it doesn't, Rich. It makes you look like you should live in a doll's house. And basically, the world he lives in is a doll's house. And what has he done? What has he done in the last few years to make England a better place? Nothing. Boris did. Boris did. Sorry, I am not a Boris supporter particularly, but Boris got us to positions which we now object to, but we wanted to be in, and object to Boris because he got us there. It's England, man. England's a strange place. It's such a strange place. But compare them to what we've got in America. You've got the Orange Man, the man from Del Monte, and you've got Maggie out of The Simpsons walking and falling across the stage. What chance has this world got?
Well, he's a friend of Nigel. I mean, they go together. They're a pair, aren't they? But if you want another pair, you've mentioned Sir Keir. And what about the lovely Rachel that's going to manage our financial affairs? I mean, I don't know what she's on, but I could do with some myself, I think. She wants to break the glass ceiling, doesn't she?
Yeah, but
Uh,
it should be done. It should be broken.
well, no, quite let's get some facts and figures, my famous stats.
His
Women are
facts and
paid,
figures are so good, he makes them up.
but that's true. No, this one's kosher. Uh, women's wages, men's wages. Now, the dear Rachel is saying 50-50 at least. I want all the executives to make sure that they are women, up to 50%. The facts are as follows: 14.3% wage difference between a man and a woman. Overall, everybody,
Yeah,
big wigs and little wigs. So there you go, 14.3%.
yeah.
That happens to be exactly the same, near enough for the math in all this, as the amount of time that ladies spend at work compared with men. Now, oh, what do I mean by that? Well, it's simple. You can't expect the ladies to be there every day because they've got families to bring up. That, and of course, when the little one has got chicken pox, then they have to be looked after. And when ladies pass through, both at a younger age and at a middle age, various times of life, I won't go into this much, but when they need a fan other than their husband to cool off, various things happen to them and they have to take time off. But that actually matches up with as it stands now, with the lesser pay. In other words, they're 14.3% less valuable to an employer. Now, if we make them all breaking the glass, what's it? Then perhaps the employer will say, well, why should I employ a woman when I'm going to get nearly 15% less work out of them? Point.
Except, well, it's a point, and I believe it is factually correct. Yeah, I really do. I've seen those figures, and yeah, the point is different, though, really, isn't it? The glass ceiling was there because women were undervalued, and basically because of that argument that women stayed at home and looked after the children. That if they were the first port of call, if something happened, something like a kid was sent home from school or got arrested or whatever. That's the way it used to be. Now
Do
there
you
is.
realise, Lee, the Freudian slip you've made there? I mean, got arrested. Unfortunately, that's more apposite than chickenpox these days. The reason, probably, or possibly, or one of the reasons, maybe, that the ladies are encouraged to put your child in nursery, get out and work. Never mind this bonding bit, you need the brass.
I couldn't agree with you more again. I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on. Um, the situation with families now, particularly, go-getting families, let's say families who have ambition. First of all, women are equally entitled to be as ambitious as men. Women are equally entitled to get married, have a family, and own a home, just as men are. Women are equally entitled to be in the boardroom, equally entitled to open a business, equally entitled to earn exactly what men earn if they're doing the same job with the same commitment. Generally, now, if you are a go-getting couple, you work together, and the man is on call as much as the woman is. I have experience of a family in the early 40s, got 4 children, live in a nice place, both got very high powered jobs. Uh, they spend 3 days a week each working from home, but on separate 3 days. Like the wife goes into the office for 3 days, the husband stays at home, vice versa. That's the way it works. And so they are equally on call for problems, for picking kids up from school, feeding them. And that now is a way a lot of people do it. Then don't forget, more people and more people are working from home. So this facilitates that attitude towards it. And if everything is equal, because that's what equality is about, and that's what a lot of people tend to forget. Equality is about being equal. So if a woman is being equally industrious and is equally in charge of the job and whatever she's doing, and has exactly the same qualification, does everything that the bloke does, of course, the glass ceiling should be broken. But the glass ceiling should be broken anyway. It shouldn't exist. It should never have existed. You employ people. I don't employ people now, but I have employed people for a big period of my life. And what I look for, male or female, is the best person for that job. And if there is a family background, I now ask exactly the same questions of the husband as I do of the wife. And that's how equality grows into a viable concern.
Can I say that I think that we should be more equal individually? And that is that it's great to see when it happens and you have to do it and be a single parent family against all odds that it works out. But stats tell us it's not ideal. There are more problems. Well done, those that succeed, but it's not as good as the nuclear family, as it's called.
No.
Women are very special and they've got a very special relationship with their children. You cannot replace a woman. Equally so, men are very special. You cannot replace the man. I mean, a simple illustration is that of discipline, maybe, especially for young teenagers. Mum needs some help in that direction. So we fit together wonderfully. The ideal is a nuclear family. But Rachel, bless her, has gone on to say more. And she's actually said that women can do every job that a man can do. No. And man, of course, but she didn't say this, cannot do every job that woman can do. Now, simple illustration. I'm sorry, ladies, but if somebody's fighting for my country in the SAS, I'm going to vote for a man every time because for a number of reasons, you cannot physically cope. You're not built that way. Well, equally so, men don't try and have children. Women are experts. Leave it to them. Even though Sir Keir has not really made his mind up yet, that's the other danger we have. But together we are stronger. They are. That's an ancient expression, but it's ever so true.
Again, I can't really disagree with you in principle. I don't think. I think SAS women. You're going to get dead if you fight one of them, whether it's a woman or a bloke. I think you're just dead.
They
I
don't
wouldn't
fight
bother.
fair, do they? No, that's true.
No, that's it. And they nag you first. Yeah, they tell you off as well. Sorry. I'm sorry to all the women. He makes me say things like this. He just makes me. Anyway, yeah. But, and this is where I'm going to sound just as bad. I have an argument on a regular basis with all my ex-wives, and Andrea and I, who is currently quite ensconced in the position and safe, and I hope I'm safe with her. But we do have this discussion where I say the tire needs changing on the car, and she goes like that. And so I'll say, so suppose I'm doing it. And she goes, because it's not a woman's job. It's not a woman's job to go and change a tyre. But if the kettle is boiled, she says to me, can you go and make a cup of tea? And I go, and she says, why? I said, because it's not a man's job, Doug. And that is where it boils down to it. There are still men's jobs and still women's jobs. Yeah, you see loads of little dainty ladies driving big HGVs. Yeah, you see them digging out and empty. Do you know, have you ever seen a dustbin woman? Yeah, we have
Well,
dustbin men.
well,
I've
they
never
must be
actually
there.
seen a
Oh,
dustbin woman.
well, you can have them now because
Well,
a
yeah,
lot of the lorries, certainly in Spain, have these. Well, it's a hook that grabs over hold of this massive dustbin, and all you do is press a button. Now,
yeah.
the ladies can do that, but they certainly can't lift it manually, hence the name manual.
Unless they're very, very big, Rodney. Unless they're built like men. But then again, don't get me on this. Why do women want to look like men now? Oh man, honestly, I'm not allowed to look like a man. I'm a manly man. I'm not allowed to look like a man. I'm frowned upon. But yeah, if I was a woman and I wanted to wear dungarees and have my hair shaved and have a tattoo on my head there, that's oh, isn't she lovely? Yeah,
Well, I
stating
mean,
her own independence.
is this why the hair is long? I mean, we've got, there's been breaking news. Yesterday it broke, actually, because the day before yesterday, or whenever it was, Mr. Putin visited North Korea, and there's a peculiar man there with a peculiar haircut. So I went into this haircut in business. Now, beware, this is what's going to happen, people, when Labour get in. There's going to be rules for everything, like North Korea. And one rule is actually, I found out, you can have up to 12 haircuts for a man. They give you pictures of the type of haircut and an actual style that you can have. If you're outside the 12, you're put in prison. But
Yeah.
you've got to select which you want, and then you go to a barber, and he says, "That's the picture. I'll cut your hair like that." Now that is the ultimate in socialism. Beware, everybody. They think the state, that is, they know better than you, and that's why
How
I'm
many?
I'm very liberal in my thinking because nobody knows better than you about you, and nobody knows better than me about me.
Yeah,
But
but
go on.
Rod, sorry.
But there is this thing about, oh, well, if you give it all to big business, yes. And this is where the state comes in because big business can just be as bad as communism, which is what we're talking about, and therefore needs little laws and sometimes quite big ones to control it and getting out of hand. So we have got to decide everywhere in the world what type of control do we want?
Oh,
Leave
yeah.
it all to the state because the state knows best,
Mm.
or leave it all to the big business or somewhere in between.
Well, yeah, that's why we have so much anarchy at the moment, isn't it? Because people are not accepting that. And the anarchists we have, to be fair, are not very successful because they're more thinking about being anarchists rather than what they're actually being anarchistic about. But going back to hair, I do have to ask this question. How many hairstyles are available to men in the rest of the world? I have one hairstyle, you have a hairstyle, so that's two. We know about bald, that's three. Comb overs, that's four. How many hairstyles?
No, you're
Maybe,
out of date, Lee. Come on, look on the average football pitch,
yeah.
Premiership preferably. There's 11 different hairstyles on there. Every one of them. They've got
But
little
are
clips
they
here.
tied up a head? Yeah.
Yes, there you go. A myriad. Another good
Maybe
word.
there. Well, maybe that's answered the question then. Maybe there are more styles of hair in the world than Mr. Oom is actually suggesting are available to his mandem. But let me say very quickly, I have my hair here on my head. And what this came out of a rebellion. This was my anarchistic fight for freedom from working in a corporate environment. For years, I'd had very short hair. I look very pretty with short hair. And I show my ears, they're my ears. And I wore a suit, I wore a tie. I did everything. I wore shiny shoes and drove around in a Mondeo. I was just your typical short-haired Mondeo man. And going into the office, being all powerful, powerfully dressed, had all the trauma of it, didn't enjoy it. And I thought, well, I'm really good at my job. Why do I have to look this way? And so I started to grow my hair. And I started to dress the way I'm dressed now. And I still went into the office and I still did my job and I still commanded the respect of my staff. What I didn't get was the respect of my direct bosses, who basically, because the position I was in, were the board members. Now, the board members wanted me to become a managing director of a group of weekly newspapers, which is the natural progression. And then I would become managing director of a daily newspaper, blah, blah. I just went on. But they didn't want me to look the way I did in an executive position. So, really, in many ways, my career ended because of my hair, or I met a hair ceiling that wasn't breakable because they said, well, you can't be a managing director with hair like that. Sorry, Lee. And that really, now that is where anarchists should step in. And actually, now later, if you look at people because they work at home and everything, yeah, they do walk around and people have become a bit scruffy. The man in a three-piece suit walking around the office being a bit noisy and flamboyant is a creature of the past. We're all creatures of the past.
I am going to become a creature of the future. And to illustrate that Big Brother knows best, I've got two stories, one picture. Let's have the story first before we get into the second. It's been tried in Gateshead for the last 7 years. You know that our children are getting fat and fatter every day. They
Yeah,
blame everything from the pandemic to cheap Mars bars that are now smaller than ever.
yeah,
We're being misled. Therefore, take the Mars bars off the exits to your supermarket, etc.
mm,
We try everything. Gateshead were ahead of the game 7 years ago because they decided, which now everybody, especially the Labour Party, are taking on board, we've got to control the number of hot food outlets that open well into the night in our
mm,
city centres. We're not going to give you any more permission. They've been doing it for 7 years in Gateshead.
mm,
And guess what? They've just published the figures. And the people of Gateshead really appreciate this because the sum is zero. It's made no difference to the weight of
mm,
anybody. They're just as many fat as thin. It doesn't work, this control. But should it work, nanny state again. Where's the parents? They should be feeding them decent food that they'll like if it's prepared properly and not, oh, yeah, I've got to get to work. Go on and get a Mars bar and a packet of crisps. That's the problem, not shutting the fast food joints. Who could shut a kebab house? What would you do without a kebab house at 1 o'clock in the morning after well, you needed to soak up the alcohol, don't you? And to
well,
be poorly
exactly.
for a week so you can stay off work for a week.
You just move to Greece and drink ouzo.
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah, drink ouzo and have a kebab. It's right. Yeah, I you see the main problem is uh, I believe it goes back to what we were talking about before and about parents having big jobs and needing the jobs to get the money so they can continue looking after the families and paying the mortgages. And so now I remember when I used to go to school, I didn't come from a family of great largesse and generosity. But and so I was sent to school with cheese sandwiches, a packet of cheese sandwich, always in the paper that the bread had come in. Yeah, grease-proof paper like that, and and you could swing them while you were walking. You could do also you could hit people with them, anything. They were just useful, and that was what I took to school. The alternative excuse me, the alternative was school dinners, which were like, I don't know, I can't even describe them, man, honestly. I just can't. They used to come in like you get everything on one plate. You put in your breakfast, your dinner, your tea, everything would be on one plate and you'd have to sort. Anyway, it's disgusting. But nowadays, uh, we tend to go out for lunch quite a lot, basically because neither of us want to cook. And where we go for lunch, which, there's a few places, there is a McDonald's, of course. And there, from say midday till about 2 o'clock, there is nothing but a procession of school children who go in and buy McDonald's. Sorry, McDonald's, but it's true. It's just true. There are other food outlets, I'm sure, who feed school kids as well. But that's where it is. Then at night, because we're still out because we've got things to do, we meet people. They're about 3:30. What do you see the kids doing? They go to Costa Coffee because that has become a creche now. What do they eat in there? They drink fattening coffee and they eat cakes and things like that. Or they go to Pretty Manger or whatever they're called, or that one that does those really big sandwiches like that. So then they go home and have the tea. That's why you've got fat kids, because, like you say, because of parents, because of fast food, and because we don't have time to feed our children properly but anymore. So we have a load of kids who now look like Americans.
Yes, sums it up. Listen, we've got to move on, Lee. We're running out of time already, but I've got a photograph to show you. And it's illustrative of where we are. Not only in the UK, other countries, I mentioned one, Holland, have got this problem, this disease. But this is in Cambridge, this photograph. I've got two photographs indeed. Let's show you. One, an aerial photograph. I'll put it on now. Well, there you go. Now, this is an invention, a nightmare of a committee, but the committee is based in Cambridge because they had the odd £1 million to spend. That's the cost of that. There are 31 traffic lights there. And I'll tell you why. Because it's been decided that Cambridge is a lovely city for the cyclists. And this £1 million has been spent on that. It opens in 2 weeks' time. The second picture, which we're going to show now, is of a close of the traffic lights, 31 of them. Now, what's going to happen here, as anybody with half a brain can see, is that the cars are going to come along and it'll take an hour and a half to get round the roundabout. I suppose it does that with the average roundabout anyway in Britain. But I mean, this is just madness. And it goes on. It's a Labour stroke Liberal Democrat council. Obviously, as it's in Cambridge, the students walk out of university and they put the lefties in straight away and they come up with wonderful schemes like that. Beware, not only beware the committee, because they've had such amount of opposition. You're mad, it's insanity, it'll never work. Well, before a car drives on that, you can see it yourself. Who's going to give way to who? Why have you done it? And the committee have said, and I'll read it out, to keep cyclists safe from pedestrians and cars. What? To keep cyclists safe from pedestrians? Have you got that a bit wrong?
Yeah, well, it's there are examples of this kind of insanity everywhere, everywhere. Let me just, it's just strange. This is something I've not talked about for a long time, but it is quite pertinent. Where I live, the city council, it might be who runs roads now. I've completely forgotten. It's the county council who run roads, isn't it?
Always
And
was.
the county council in this town, which is our own, our local town, put in 28 sets of traffic lights round an island. Now, that was done probably about 15 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer. The reason it was done was very simple. The whoever designed the roads, and I know who designed the roads, and I know what happened to him. It's not worth going into now, but I can do at some stage. Designed the major A road, uh, which came from one town to another, stretched for 40 miles, put it right through the town centre of this town. Yeah, right through the centre. So what you got was all the traffic going into the town centre, right? And then coming out of the town centre. So the whole town was gridlocked. So what they did, yeah, let's put a big island in and put 28 sets of traffic lights on it. And that did exactly what they wanted it to do. It stopped the traffic going through the town centre. However, unfortunately, they cannot designate the main road that this traffic is now driven away from. And that all the traffic, up to 20,000 vehicles a day, now go down a non-main route and have destroyed the lives and the property values and everything of, well, thousands of people. Now, the main road, which the council have to spend all their budget on because it's the main road, is being spent on a road that is totally underused. Whereas the road where all the traffic is on can't have the money spent on it because it's not an A road. It's absolutely outrageous.
A lot of outrageous about, isn't it? Hence the title of this program. But who are we bleating against? Well, we're bleating from those in charge. Most of whom do not know which day of the week it is. They've got no real knowledge of traffic. They're just on a committee and they're subcommitted. The other thing that you've mentioned there really is the legal situation. Living in Southern Europe, actually, for longer than we've lived in GB, you get used to moving goalposts, let's call it politely.
Mm.
But it does oil the wheels and it does make things work. Because if you come along with a law, and I'll give you an illustration, nothing works in Britain at the moment. And you can see that when you go on a battle bus and you see the interviewer and the interviewee being cut off every 2 minutes because the mobile phone mask is not where it should be. And you lose signals. Every
Mm.
conversation on news programs is often interrupted, let's say, by bad signal. And
Mm.
there's a reason. And now the phone companies have got together. They've not said this, but I will say it. BT is the main reason because it owns all the telephone lines. It's a monopoly and they want sorting out. And the government, whichever hue it is, will not sort it out. And don't forget, BT, by the way, are EE now. So
Mm. Mm.
there's the two big boys, and it's got even more of a monopoly. But there are six other mobile companies that have actually got together, written a letter to government, not that anything will be done about it, certainly pre-election and probably post-election, saying, for goodness sake, planning permission, the curse of all mankind, you've got to set it out because it's NIMBY. Nobody
Mm.
wants it in their backyard.
Mm.
And we're short of mass. And because of the way things work in Grand Britannia, companies prefer not to share a mast.
Yeah.
Why? Get used to
Yeah.
it. Stick it on any building like they do in
Yeah.
Southern Europe, and then there's no problems. We never run out of signals, even in tunnels in
Mm.
Spain.
Mm.
Now, that's how it should be. You can be on top of a 14,000-foot mountain. There's a blooming mast there. You never run out of a signal. And if poor Spain and Portugal, which we know particularly well, don't run out of signals, Britain do, something is very wrong then.
Of course
Absolutely.
it is. Yeah. The just a personal addendum to that is when we ended up back in the village of the damned, we had to have the internet reinstalled in the house. Long story why that happened. It was just outrageous and silly, but it took us a long, long time to get it. Our signal, as Rodney will agree with readily, is absolutely appalling. It really is bad. We have to find times where things are working. And we do have this old problem when everybody gets home from work into the village, the signal drops. We can't have that's what's it called, fiber optic or whatever it is, because we're too far away. Funnily enough, the BT unit where fiber optic goes in is just 20 yards across the road from us. That's too far to put it in. And so we have whatever it's called. We have to have a landline. So no, I don't want a landline. I don't even want my mobile phone. I don't want a landline on top of it. But we have to have a landline. Now we don't make calls on that landline, but we can. That facilitates us for our internet. Do you know how much it costs us to have that? A line we don't use and an internet that's not very good. We are currently paying just under £50 a month for that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, 50 quid a month.
Well, as an illustration, and this will make everybody a bit jealous, I do hope. We're in the middle of nowhere, more in the middle of nowhere, as you well know, Lee. We're
Absolutely.
in the mountain country,
Yeah,
and we shouldn't be getting any signals because of the big mountains. But what we get for £23 a month is a gigabyte asymmetrical. I'll explain that. A
yeah,
thousand down and a thousand up. You can run New York with that. We
yeah,
obviously need it for television purposes, but there's
yeah,
no problem. On top of that, we get free phones, and on top of that, we get 1,000 television channels. What a joke! And I can even go one better. You're talking fiber optic. Well, in poor Portugal, and it is relatively poor,
yeah,
95% of that country has fibre to each individual house.
yeah.
Shame on you, Britain.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Let me just do backing of what you're saying, but this time from Eastern Europe and Central Europe. Decades ago, going back into the 50s and 60s, if you remember, Rodney, the Russians who owned and commandeered most of the Eastern and Central Europe at that time, i.e., the Velvet Revolution and everything, um, built tenement buildings, and these tenement buildings are everywhere. They're quite attractive now. They've become quite infra, whatever that word is. They are quite attractive. They've got that working quality, that industrial, that austerity of industrialism. Do you know what Slovakia did? They fed fibre through all the old conduits for central heating, which were now redundant but still there. They fed all the fibre wires through that into everybody's apartment. Yeah, incredible. Why can't we do it?
Because we have too many laws saying it can't be done.
Well, I have a 300-year-old house that's full of holes, and I'll give them permission to go and stick their fibre through what I've got. I can't finish that sentence, can I? Because it gets disgusting. But we'll leave it to that.
Before we go, we have to mention something that, again, which is fundamental. That was fundamental about telephone lines because it's now a utility. You need it, not just something that's a luxury extra. It's a utility. Anyway,
Absolutely.
let's talk about another utility, which is freedom. When you next get an advice from anybody, read it. I know it's got 15 pages, small letters, but read it. It says we're changing our modus operandi. We want to advise you about that. We are making Facebook better for you. That's what they all say. Nothing to do with that. They're restricting you. So what are Facebook up to? Very simple. They've seen how powerful AI is. We've hinted about this on previous broadcasts about don't need to do exams anymore. Get AI to do it for you. Write the essay. Now, what's happened is that they have decided to limit your rights if you read the Facebook diatribe. And here it is. It says that they can come in if they deem and take even the novel you've written and change it through AI. You only need to change a bit for you to destroy copyright in effect. And AI will do that in 30 seconds. And they can sell it. I mean, they don't say this, but this is what it means. They can go and sell it on Amazon or Waterstones. And anyway, and what have they done? They've not rewritten your book. They've not even done a parody. They've just perhaps done 2 or 3 paragraphs. Oh, it's a new work. Put their name on it. Wow. Beware of things like this.
It's always been part of the publishing world, though, that there is no copyright on a story. A story concept can't be copyrighted. You can brand it, you can cover things, in that way. You can protect it. But certainly within the world of newspapers, etc., and in broadcasting, you can take an exclusive off the Daily Mail. Say you're working on the Daily Express. Daily Mail have got an exclusive. There is no law against you lifting that and rewriting it, totally rewriting it. There are points within it legally where information can become like a problem and can be copyright, blah, blah, blah. So the rewrite sub has to know exactly what he's doing and where he can go and where he can't go. Within the world of novels, it is slightly different because the rewriting of, say, 100,000 words by AI, etc., will never be complete. And there will be elements left in that which will prove the original copyright. Now, that in itself is fine. It's good and it sounds like you're protected. Believe me, you're not really protected by that. As Rodney knows, I spent 18 months getting the work of 15 authors back off a man who we know well, who stole 15 authors' work. And it took me 18 months to get that work back off him. I did get it back. Everybody got the work back. So it is possible to do it. But what you've got to do is the rub. Don't self-publish your books on Amazon because A, you don't have the resources to take the people on. B, you don't have the knowledge of how the world. We people who are professional writers are called professionals for one reason. It's because we've studied everything. We know about law. We know about that. The person who sits there, right, I'll write a sci-fi novel. I'll call it Dragons and Dungeons. Then they'll go ahead and do it and just, and it's there you are in danger. I'm in danger as a professional writer. It can happen and you can get hurt. But that's how you tie it up with copyright. And you are clever enough, or don't say clever, clever's wrong, experienced enough and knowledgeable enough to build something in to your book on a regular basis that can't take away, they cannot use. It's just what you do. Knowledge is no good. Knowledge is good and experience is good. It's when you're not experienced that you go through, and it's a horrendous thing to happen to you if it does. Yeah, AI is up there with Farage, that idiot bloke kid in Romania, and whatever he's
The
called.
orange one, he's forgotten. It's the
I
orange
was
one.
leaving him out. I was going for Maggie Beeden. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, there you go. I'm going to give him the last word after all. And I'm going to ask him a straight question that you've got to answer in
Ooh.
30 seconds. You've got why you, despite your thoughts about the lovely Nigel Farage, why you see that people really should be voting for him compared with all the others.
Why do I see people should vote for him? Because it's a really good way of wasting your vote and nothing will happen with it. Yeah, vote for Nigel Farage. It's a wasted vote and you won't get all the other idiots in.
And if you think it'll make any difference for voting for anyone, well, he's just said the best of British. I don't think finally, we've ever been in such a pickle in the UK. Usually you can say, oh, I'll give them a try. But most people, and this is very frightening, finally, at best, a third of people will be voting Labour as Labour voters. So
Yeah,
2/3 of us are not representative.
yeah.
That is frightening.
But that's the democratic process. That's built in to the democratic process. I
Are we
know.
going to go to North Korea then?
Well, they don't have the right to vote. We have the right to vote, but I believe in the right to not vote as well. You know, it's again we go back to equality. It's we are frowned upon if we don't vote in Britain. If we waste our vote, you waste your vote by voting, um, because of the people and the standard of the people involved. But I have as much right to not vote as I have to vote. That is democracy.
Well, it's a type of democracy, and we won't go in because we've run out of everything. We'll next week we'll discuss PR and
PR,
first past the post and see which is the most democratic. Lee,
that's interesting.
yes, we will see you next week.
That'll do. No problem. I'll find my way here one way or the other.
Probably the other. See you next week.